we will give you that resource to be able to check it out. You will have an opportunity to ask brief questions at the end of our presentation. You're going to see that we're going to cover a lot of information. So just make sure to hold on to those, and then staff will be able to say your questions that kind of come up. We also will be sharing a link to a Google folder to access materials. So towards the end of the presentation, we'll kind of paste that link in the chat box so you guys are able to see that as well. And then if you still need assistance with reviewing your financial aid award letter, maybe we said something and you kind of want more of that assistance, please make sure to reach out to your ETS advisors, and then we'll be able to assist you in that way. So while we're letting maybe a few more folks in, we'll maybe start in about 2 more minutes. So once again, if you're just joining us, welcome. Please make sure to just introduce yourself by writing your name in the chat box. Hi, Ms. Kim. I just saw your greeting in the chat box. So yes, welcome everybody. If you're just joining us, please make sure to sign in with your high school of attendance as well, and we'll get started in just a second. Okay. All right, we have a good amount, so I think we're gonna get started just because we do have a lot of important information today that we want to make sure that we just have time to touch upon. But remember, any questions that you guys have, we'll be able to answer towards the end, and we can go ahead and get started. So hi, everybody. Welcome to our financial aid award review presentation. So this presentation is really geared towards our ETS seniors and non-ETS seniors. If you're also joining us, welcome. So today we're going to be discussing how to read and interpret your financial aid award letters. At this point, you should be reviewing, the different financial aid award letters from colleges that you've been accepted to, and understanding your financial aid award is really a key part in assessing the cost of your college education, right? So we know that these letters might be a little bit difficult to understand, especially if this is the first time that, you're applying to college and you're seeing, what does all these different costs mean and how is that going to impact my own financial aid? So we're going to be explaining today what these letters are and really how to interpret them so that you're able to calculate your own cost of attendance for a particular campus. So before we get started, I just want to introduce all the panelists here for our presentation today. So my name is Diana Lasso. I'm one of the program specialists for ETS. I've been an advisor at different schools within LA and South Bay. So if any of the panelists want to also introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, my name's Sienna Bush. I'm currently the South Bay program specialist, and I used to be the advisor at Dominguez High School.
Hi everyone, my name's Jocelyn Garcia, and I am the program specialist for Compton Long Beach. And I was also an advisor for Compton High. Sorry, I was getting some feedback.
And hi everyone, my name is Sydney. I'm the ETS advisor at Cabrillo.
Perfect. So those are all the panelists for today. If you also hear back from other ETS staff, they're just going to be here also helping us out, monitoring the chat box and whatnot. So before we get started, I just want to make sure we review the agenda so you all know what we're going to be talking about today. So first, we're going to just briefly go over the 4 different types of financial aid. I'm sure at this point, most of you seniors have already seen the different types, right? But we want to make sure that we go ahead and review what those are. Then we'll talk a little bit about what an actual financial aid award letter is and how to review that, right? So some of the things that might that the letter might maintain. Also learning how to accept and decline those financial aid award reviews or awards, just because we want to make sure that we go ahead and accept those to whatever school that you end up deciding to attend, right? And then we're actually gonna go over a financial aid spreadsheet, which is a resource that we at ETS use so that students are able to kind of create their own kind of budget. Then towards the end, we'll review a Google folder, which, we have all these resources, which should be accessible to everybody. Let us know if you're having issues with that, and then we'll have room for questions. So To briefly kind of just go over a little bit of the review, we do have 4 different types of financial aid, right? So we have grants, scholarships, work study, and federal loans. I'm not going to take too much time discussing them just because we're going to have Jocelyn and Sydney kind of go into them with detail. So Jocelyn, if you want to go ahead and get started with grants.
Thank you, Diana. So we're going to go ahead and get started discussing a little bit more about what grants are. I think most of you at this point may have heard Cal Grant more so than any other grant. It's pretty familiar out there. So with California grants, it's important to keep into consideration that you only get a Cal Grant if you go to a school in the state of California. So for anyone who's planning on maybe going to a school out of state, then the Cal Grant will not be, you won't be eligible to receive the Cal Grant. So that's more so the important thing to keep in mind and to factor in when you're looking at your financial aid award. And I'm just going to briefly go over what Cal Grant A, B, and C are really briefly. But again, if you do need more information on that, we highly motivate you to reach out to your college advisor as they will have more time to review these with you. So first off, with Cal Grant A, it does require a 3.0 GPA, and you can be eligible to up to 12,570 at a UC and 5,742 at a Cal State. So these Cal Grants are usually like aimed to possibly cover tuition costs, sometimes fees, but it just depends. Cal Grant B, or Cal Grant A, sorry, it does require, I think I said 3.0 GPA, and Cal Grant B requires a 2.0 GPA. It provides the same aid as a Cal Grant A, but you get like an additional 1,656 for any other expenses. You will see sometimes if you're eligible for both, you will see that maybe you get a Cal Grant A at one school and a Cal Grant B at another school. That's totally normal, as schools do grant you whatever aid is the most. So for some reason, if Dominguez Hills gave you the Cal Grant A, it's because that's more at their school, and maybe Long Beach gave you a Cal Grant B, it's because that's the most highest amount at their school. So it's totally normal to see different Cal Grants if you are eligible for both. For Cal Grant C, this is mostly only for students who are interested in any career and technical schools. So if you are trying to pursue something, maybe a mechanic, and you want to go to a technical school, or you want to go to a community college to study cosmetology, you might be eligible for a Cal Grant C, as it does provide about 547 for books and tools and equipments that you do need to go about your program. So in order to claim your Cal Grant awards, you must have had create a Web Grants account. For the most part, if you've already been talking to your advisor, you should have already created a Web Grants account where you will eventually update the school of attendance. So as many of you know, May 1st, decision day is coming up, and you all will know what school you're going to go to. So you're going to log in back to your Web Grants and you're going to update that school of attendance. You have to keep in mind that Web Grants usually picks up any school that you added to your financial aid. So it might have UC Merced on there, even if you're planning on going to Cal State Long Beach. So you want to make sure you log in and you update your school of attendance as soon as you SIR. You also have to submit any additional documentation. So when you log into your Web Grants, you'll see that there's like a to-do list on there. Make sure you're constantly checking that you're logging into your Web Grants account so you can submit any additional documentation that it is requested from either the campus itself or from CSAC. And lastly, once you do graduate, you will have to update your graduation date on there. So if you graduate June 4th, 2021, you'll go back to your Web Grants account and you'll update that date on your Web Grants account. We also have Educational Opportunity Program grants, which is EOP, for any students who did get accepted into EOP. This is something that if you did apply, you probably applied way back in November when you submitted your Cal State application. So as of now, you probably should have received any notice if you got accepted into EOP or not. So if you are awarded a EOP grant, again, these are all free, like grants are free money. So this is money that you never have to pay back. So if you were awarded, you must demonstrate need, meaning that you must qualify as like a low income student, and you can be awarded up to $1,500. It just depends on the school and their specific program and the funds that their EOP program has. So with EOP grants, you have to follow through any requirements that the EOP program has set for you. So for example, if the school is requesting to interview you for any reason, then you have to follow through with those interviews. I know this is more common with CSUN, as they do sometimes contact students to do an EOP interview. So you have to make sure that you schedule your interviews, that you're following through, and also checking any emails, your spam emails, as they will request any additional information from you. And we also have the Chafee grant. The Chafee grant is for our foster youth. So if you were ever in foster care, or if you are in foster care now, you could have been eligible for the Chafee grant. This is something that you should have applied for earlier on, and it's done through the Web Grants account. If you do want more information on this, please reach out to your college advisors. We will be able to provide a little bit more in-depth information. And moving forward, we also have the federal Pell Grant, which a lot of you may qualify for as well. Federal Pell Grant, it is for undergraduates. So for anyone graduating from high school and going to pursue a bachelor's, then you can be eligible for a federal Pell Grant, which can be awarded up to like your tuition. It can cover the cost of your tuition at your respective school. And we also have the Blue and Gold plan that is more so seen at the UC levels. You won't see this at the Cal State level, but the Blue and Gold plan ensures that you would have you will not have to pay any UC tuition and fees. So if you are going to a UC system school, then it will cover your tuition and fees, and you won't have to pay out of your own pocket if you meet a certain eligibility for income and residency as well. And the plan, we also have the school-based grants. You can possibly see on your financial aid award that maybe you got a CSU grant or another UC grant. This is going to vary depending on the school. It encompasses a lot of things. So just make sure you're following through and actually reading your financial aid award carefully, so you can keep an eye on that. And at the bottom, I did add like a little screenshot of what we're going to be discussing later on when it comes to the financial aid award review workbook. And then we're just going to quickly move to scholarships. So scholarship money is free money that you can be eligible to receive. However, this is something that you have to apply for. So completing scholarships may mean less loans or simply more money for school. So if you're constantly applying to scholarships, that means you have a higher chance of getting free money, and you probably don't have to get as many loans as if you didn't apply to any scholarships. For any of you who have been in ETS for a long time, you know that we're constantly sending out those monthly scholarship lists. This is a great opportunity to even get started in applying to scholarships through different websites and through different opportunities. Some important tips to keep in mind is to look for scholarships on college websites that you're considering. So if I'm considering going to Cal State Long Beach, I'm going to go ahead and type in CSULB scholarships on Google, and it might redirect me to their own scholarship list. When I apply to a scholarship directly through the school site, I may have a higher chance of getting those because they're something what we call school-based scholarships. And this basically increases your chances because you're only competing with a small amount of students, which is only the students within that university. Also, community-based scholarships are better. And you can find these at websites like FastWeb. We also have Big Future on College Board, so you can always reach out again to your college advisor and we can provide you with these resources. These smaller scholarships, again, if you're applying to smaller scholarships, you're competing with less students, so you have a higher chance of actually getting in. I know a lot of the high schools sometimes even provide scholarships for their seniors. I'll set an example really quickly, like Compton High. I know they have an alumni scholarship that is already open for those who are on the call and are from Compton High. You can apply to these. You're only competing with with your same peers, so you have a higher chance of getting in. So just with scholarships, just make sure you understand the conditions you must meet. So for instance, if you have to maintain a certain GPA or have a certain GPA, you have to make sure that you meet that requirement before you even apply. Some scholarships might require you to be a junior, might require you to be a senior. Again, you have to take into consideration all those factors. And some scholarships are even targeted for students who are maybe, for example, interested in STEM. So there's scholarships out there for just STEM students or even Hispanic students. There's scholarships for everything. So it's a matter of just being proactive and reaching out and doing your own research, but also taking into consideration that you have to be careful with any websites that may try to scam you, because there's some websites out there that are not legitimate and they might ask for information that should not be providing on a website. So again, there is a great variety of scholarships, and therefore it is important to pay attention to specific requirements. Like I said earlier, local scholarships are less competitive, therefore you have a higher chance of getting it. And something else to keep in mind is that scholarships can be sent to the school, directly to your school, so to the university that you're attending, or it can be sent to your personal, either your personal home address or your personal bank account. It just depends on the scholarship. So there's various ways that you can receive your scholarship money if you are a scholarship recipient.
All right, and then I'm going to talk about work study. So work study is earned money. So it's money that must be earned as the student works and therefore will not be able to cover any fixed costs. And this term fixed costs will be going over in just a few slides, unless the student sets up a monthly payment plan with their campus. So again, it's money that you pretty much work for while you are in school. So different types of employment, they're need-based, part-time employment, on or off campus, and your earnings go toward your tuition fees, etc. So I was also in work study when I was in college. I only used it my senior year, but I was able to be a tutor on campus, and it was really nice because they worked around my schedule, and I'm just really understanding of that. Other things, you can maybe work at the library, the bookstore, the health office, or just different departments such as like EOP or the financial aid office. And then students offered work study will be notified on your award letter. And so this little screenshot is also from that financial aid award review sheet that we're going to go over a little bit later. But the net cost will be the money that they expect you to find elsewhere after considering financial aid, loans, and work study. So that's what that purple kind of part is. And usually this can be covered by either parents, other jobs, scholarships. And if you have the numbers inside the parentheses, that means you would receive money back, which is great. But if you have numbers without the parentheses, that is when you would have to have a conversation about any out-of-pocket costs that you may need to cover. So again, this is very helpful for students who kind of need that extra aid and can kind of work on campus or off campus. And it's just something to start considering you like in the midsummer or right when school starts to try to find a job that is covered with your work study. All right, and then we have loans. So there's different types of loans. And so federal loans are fixed low interest rate or no interest at all, and money that has to be repaid. The most common federal loans include subsidized and unsubsidized loans. So subsidized loans, we call them the good loans. So they should be carefully considered, but maybe not necessarily avoided. If you accept subsidized loans, you'll have your entire time in college plus 6 months after you graduate to pay off your loan with absolutely no interest. So if you accept you want to accept the subsidized before your unsubsidized loan. And then your unsubsidized, that is the one you want to consider next or kind of last. So it will begin to accumulate interest the moment you accept it. So if you end up accepting this loan, it'll start accumulating interest all the way into your 4 years, unless you start paying it while you're in school. But even these interest rates are going to be lower than if you get like a private loan, like for example, at a bank or something like that. And then we have the Parent Plus loan, and this is one you definitely want to try to avoid if you can. So loans are made to parents of dependent undergraduate students to help pay for education expenses not covered by financial aid. And again, it's not ideal because your parent, it's not really based on financial need, and your parent would have to go through like a credit check. And it's just going to be a higher interest rate. So your parents are going to end up paying more than if you did for one of the other two loans. And then just some reminders, you can always see loans as an investment to your education once you're kind of considering all the factors. I took out loans and I definitely could have took out a lot less, but I don't regret it because again, I got to go to the school I wanted and the education that I wanted. And you don't have to take out the full amount. So let's say like they're offered 1,500, and let's say the student just needs 500 of that loan. So you don't have to take out the entire amount. And then it's also important that you can also start repaying it while you're in school. So you don't have to wait until you graduate. If you maybe have a little bit of surplus money, you can start paying that back and not have to pay it later with a higher interest rate. And then there are also private loans, but again, these aren't ideal. They'll be a much higher interest rate for you.
Okay, so now that we've reviewed like the different types of financial aid, we can actually get into reviewing the financial aid award itself. So for some students, this can actually be their determining factor, like when selecting the school they want to go to. So it's pretty important to review the financial aid package and then to also calculate the cost of attendance accurately, just so you can kind of make like a better informed decision on where you want to go. So to make that a little bit easier, we kind of created this formula. So here you can see it says cost of attendance. So that's like the overall amount that you'll see on your financial aid award. And then you're going to have to subtract the gift aid. So the gift aid is like the grants, the scholarships, work study, all that you get. So you'll take that cost of attendance and then minus the gift aid. Once you do that, then you'll get the net cost. And that net cost is kind of what Cindy was talking about, is like that out-of-pocket cost that you'll have to find a way to pay for. So some people might use loans to pay for that, or they might just pay for it like out of pocket with the money that they already have. So it just depends on your situation. But that equation can kind of make it easier for you to figure out. And if that doesn't work, we're also going to show you guys the actual spreadsheet that we have. And you can go with your ETS advisor and you guys can actually create like a customized budget for you and for the schools that you plan on attending, so your prospective colleges. Okay, so something that you should consider when actually like viewing your financial aid award are the items or the expenses that you're going to have to pretty much pay for throughout this whole process. So there's two different types. There's fixed and then there's variable costs, and they have two differences. So the fixed costs are really the expenses or the items such as like tuition and fees or room and board, and those are set by the campus. So the campus is pretty much saying like, hey, this is our tuition price, or hey, this is our room and board price if you plan on staying on campus. So usually they do remain consistent throughout the years unless they like maybe raise the amount a little bit higher. So they might increase it like over the years. So like if it's, I don't know, 10,000, they might increase it by like $100 in a few years. So that's just an example, but for the most part, they do remain the same. And then it also might vary based on your preference. So for example, when I was like a freshman, I got a triple room. So I lived with like myself in the dorm and two other people. But then once I got to like my senior year, I still lived on campus, but I preferred a single dorm. So you have to consider factors like that, because that will kind of have the amount fluctuate, if that makes sense. So just make sure that you are aware that they do stay consistent for the most part, but based on your preference, they might change just a little bit. And then there's the variable cost. So that's going to vary for every student. So say you and your best friend are like going to the same school, variable costs can be different for both of you. So variable costs are things like books and supplies. So maybe you're like a bio major and then your friend is like an art major. So your books and supplies would vary because you guys have two different majors. So that's just, an example. When it comes to books and supplies, we do encourage our students to try to find like alternatives to purchasing textbooks through your campus. So you can do like rentals, go to the library. There are like free downloads of books online. I know that's what I did. So if you can find those, that would be great. So just know that that's one of the types of variable costs. Then also transportation. So transportation is really different because if you're a commuter student, then you might have to pay for things like gas or parking. But if you're living on campus, then you might not have to pay for that. So you would minimize cost in that. And then personal expenses. So this can be, for most students, like a laptop. You're gonna probably need a laptop. So some students, they can either buy one or loan one, but for the most part, they buy one. That can also include like going out with your friends. Really personal expenses is whatever you're gonna need while you're in college. So that varies once again for everybody. However, the most important thing to note is that for the most part, the fixed costs, like I said, will be charged to the student's bill, and those are the ones that are the same. So you'll probably see like the same amount on your student bill every single year. So just know that those will be on your account, and then they will be deducted from your financial aid offer. So pretty much you'll see it on your bill, then you'll see your financial aid, and then they'll subtract it from that. If you do have any extra money, you can receive that money, and that's called like a e-refund, or you get a refund. Some people do e-refunds, some people do checks. So you might get the check in the mail, but we highly recommend that you all create a bank account so that you can get the direct deposit, and that can go into your e-refund. So basically what you would do is create a bank account. So when I went to college, I got a bank account at Bank of America. And usually they have like benefits for students as well. And then once I went to college, if I received leftover money from my financial aid, they would send it directly to my bank account through e-refund. So it just makes it easier and more convenient for you all.
And now we're just going to move forward with the cost of attendance, which we're also going to refer to COA. So if you ever see COA, we're just talking about cost of attendance. So the cost of attendance is basically an estimate of what it will cost to attend university for one academic school year. So it's not portraying what you would pay for 4 years, but it's only for one academic school year. It includes the fixed and variable costs that Sienna just talked about. And some of the costs that you will see in the cost of attendance are the same things that Sienna just reviewed right now, which is tuition and fees, room and board, transportation, books and supplies, and other educational costs. So remember, other educational costs can just include things like personal expenses. And usually that just varies depending on the student and what you're going to buy specifically. So most schools do include the COA sheet in their portal, and usually it's referred to a shopping sheet. So this is very important that once you start reviewing your financial aid awards, make sure that you have the shopping sheet for your particular school open, so you can kind of compare and contrast how much do you need for tuition, how much do you need for fees, how much are room and board. So make sure you have that. And we did provide some examples on the screen, as you can see it here. The one on the left side is a Cal State example, and the one on the right side is the UC example. It might vary for the UCs. I know UCs tend to have it differently. They don't have a uniform one. So if you do see it differently, it's okay, as long as it's providing you estimates of the amounts that you would need. So for example, in these COA sheets, you'll see approximately how much you need to cover things like transportation and room and board. Also, like Sienna said, keep in mind that these estimates do not necessarily reflect the exact amount you have to pay, with the exception of tuition and fees and room and board. Anything like transportation, books and supplies, and personal expenses are going to vary depending on how much you decide to pay. So as previously mentioned, the cost for books and supplies, as well as personal expenses, you can easily diminish that if you choose to take advantage of low cost resources. I know Sienna gave some great examples on like getting free PDFs or looking online, renting books instead of purchasing them. I know I was talking to a student earlier, and something that I did mention and that a lot of students don't seem to know is that when you go to college, it's not like high school, how you have math and English, for example, the whole year. In college, you will only have it for one semester. So those textbooks that you're buying, they're only going to be useful probably for one semester. So sometimes it's easier or more wise to just buy them or to just rent them instead of buying them, because you're probably not going to use those textbooks again. So that's something to always keep in mind. Also something to keep in mind for those whose costs are not listed on your financial aid portal. So if you go on your portal and you don't see anything like a shopping sheet or a cost of attendance, you can easily search this up on Google. So a simple Google search is going to guide you to the cost of attendance. You can just put, for example, if I'm interested in UC Merced, I'll go on Google and type in UC Merced cost of attendance. And usually the first link that pops up is going to lead me to the cost of attendance sheet. So this is just another way of getting access to these sheets that we have on here.
Okay, now we're going to talk about room and board. So your housing depends on how many roommates you have. Also, kind of like what Sienna was talking about, if you prefer to live with 1 to 2, 3 roommates. So it would be like a single, double, or triple, like a quad room. And if, depending on each one, it's going to have a different cost. So the more you have, the less you pay. And then costs and plans will vary with your housing and meal options, meal plans as well. So your meal plans, so it just kind of really depends like how many times a day do you want to eat. Each school has different meal plans and payments, and they typically kind of range from like you can get unlimited meals for, you know, the week to like maybe about 10 per week. And then some schools also offer, you can do like a prepaid card. So you can use some of that money that you're getting from financial aid or your personal money and put it to like a prepaid card, and you can kind of eat at different dining places on campus. So you don't have to just eat in the dining commons. And I did room and board. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, and of course there's different options. It's just really important to kind of do your research for each school. We can go to the next slide. So this is just an example. We just picked CSUN just as an example, but I really liked it how they kind of broke down the payment costs. And if you did want to do it in payments, they give you the due dates and then about which each different one is. So for example, they have apartment with a double with a kitchen without, a suite, which would mean you would have definitely more roommates, an apartment with the kitchen, and apartment single without a kitchen. So you can see depending on like which type it is, it's gonna kind of vary in price, and then as well as including a meal plan, which is gonna be another cost. An initial payment that is probably most likely like their refund. I'm sorry, not their refund, their deposit. So you are gonna most likely have to put down a deposit by a deadline, and it typically is when you have to do your statement of intent to register, or SIR. And you always can try to request fee waivers regarding submitting your SIR for your registration, your housing deposit, and or your orientation, especially if you do have an estimated family cost of 0. Or fees may be deferred until financial aid is dispersed, but it kind of just varies by campus. So this is definitely the week to try to, you know, start checking out if you're starting to lean towards the school, you know, maybe you are leaning towards CSUN. Right now is definitely the time to try to see, okay, like what am I going to have to pay? Are there any fees, particularly to my SIR and to my housing, if you are going to dorm? And then, so we have just kind of different housing rates and kind of dining options dining options. So for your dining options, again, this is just an example for CSUN, but you can see how they break it down. You can have 10 meals per week, plus those 700 dining dollars, which is kind of like that prepaid card I was talking about, where you can kind of eat at different places on campus. They have a meal plan with 12 plus the dining dollars, and then all access, so like unlimited plus 800 dining dollars, and then all access. And so you can kind of see how they break down the different price, and then also kind of reading this fine print of just to understand like what you're getting out of the meal plan. So for example, for the all access, it would be 3,792 compared to like 4,442. And then, you know, these ones are also in like the 4,000 and 3,000 range. So once you pick these, again, these are kind of gonna be something you can't necessarily change. It's gonna, at least for your first quarter, like I know, or first semester, like I know originally I had like a meal plan that was like, I think 21 meals per week, and I didn't use them all and it was more expensive. So I eventually lowered that to like 10 a week, and it was less of a cost for me, and it was just, you know, made more sense. So you definitely want to check out the different plans, and then just kind of see what fits into your budget as well as your lifestyle. And then we have other meal plans at CSUN. Again, just an example. So these might be more if you if you were just looking to, you know, eat out. And so they have another one. And then there's just different options available to students who might have different living situations, such as an apartment or off-campus living. So you definitely want to check that out. If you are going to be a commuter student, you can still maybe look into meal plans that might just kind of help you. You don't have to like meal prep every day, and you can kind of have something to think about when you're going to campus. And then there's, so we just kind of put in an example. So let's say if I decided I want to do an apartment double without a kitchen, so that'd be $7,316. And then a meal plan for 12 meals per week plus the dining dollars, that was another $4,122. So I end up paying about $11,000 for room and board. So that's something I can think about. And when I'm like, you guys can meet with your ETS advisor, you can put into that financial aid sheet and kind of consider what costs you would have to do for room and board.
So now we're going to show you how to actually accept and decline the financial aid awards that you might be offered. But one of the rules that we want to emphasize is that you all should take out the free money first. So that would be scholarships and grants. Then you would take out the earned money, which is work study. And then the last resort would be like the borrowed money. So the federal loans that Sydney talked about. And then some key points to remember when accepting and declining your financial aid awards are the following 5. So I'm just going to go through them really briefly and then show you 2 examples. So one example is from CSUs and then one example is from UC. So you can actually like visually see it. But pretty much the first step is to access your portal or your student center. So each portal is a little bit different. So it might not say student center exactly, but you would access your portal or student center, and then you would go to like your financial aid section, and it would most likely say like view financial aid. After you press view financial aid, then you would go on to accept or decline your awards. And then in that section, you can actually specify the amounts that you want. So how we talked about if you receive a loan for maybe $10,000, but you only want to take out 5,000, then you can go and insert that amount. Then you would make sure to save all your changes and submit your actual like acceptance or decline of the awards. And you want to make sure that you submit it and that you actually like press it and complete that part. And then the 4th step is to enroll in what I talked about earlier. So the e-refund, which is the direct deposit, so that if you do have extra money, you can be given that money as a refund or in the form of a check. So make sure that you do that and create your bank account. And then the final or the 5th step would be to complete any to-do list items or holds. So I'll show you on the screen where that section will be for the to-do list items and holds. Okay, so here's an example of what it's going to look like for a CSU. So for example, Cal State Long Beach, if they wanted to go in and accept or decline their awards, they will log into their portal. Here on the top arrow, the top red arrow, it says Student Center. I know it's a little blurry, but it says Student Center, so that's where the student will go. Thank you. And then at the bottom, you can see that it says accept or decline award. So that's where the other red arrow is. So you would click that. Just like I said, I will show you guys where the holds and to-do list is. So on the right-hand side, you can see where it says holds and to-do list. So if you ever see anything there, you want to make sure that you click it, read it, and complete whatever they're asking you for. Okay, so here is just an example. This was for Channel Islands. So it does say 2011, but you all will be picking the year of 2021 going into 2022 if you're enrolling in the fall. So you just want to make sure that you select the correct aid year so you can see the financial aid for that year. Then you would actually review the types of aid offered and you would decide if you want to accept them or decline them. So here you can see it says federal Pell Grant, then it gives the amount offered. Then it has a Cal Grant, I think that's B, it gives the amount offered and it keeps going down to the other grants. So they got a state university grant, then they got a subsidized loan, an unsubsidized loan, and they were offered a Parent Plus loan. So here you can just see what you were offered. Some of them might automatically be accepted, and that's mostly because they're grants or free money. So that's perfectly fine if you see it like that. And then after you review them, you'll click the button so where the arrow is, and it says like accept or decline awards. And then here is where you can actually insert the amount and actually check off if you want to accept or decline it. So here you can see like there's a white box in the middle where the person or the student has inserted the actual amount that they want. So they might have been offered more, but maybe they only want to take out half. That's what it's going to look like for you. After they insert the amount that they want, then they can click here to the right, accept. So like that little checkbox, they accepted those 5. And then they didn't have to press decline for any of those because they didn't decline them. After you do that, so inserting the amount and checking off the accept box, you will update your totals, which is the green, the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4th box. You'll update your totals so that everything is up to date and accurate, and then you'll finally press submit. So like I said, just make sure you save your changes and then press the submit button. And then here you would just confirm your submission. So you'll say, yes, I accept this, I made the changes, and that's pretty much it for the CSUs. Now for the UCs, it does look a little different, also depending on the school, but it has the same idea. So you're gonna log into your portal, or they might have like a separate financial aid portal. Here, this is an example of UCLA's. So the student went into their university portal, they are going to accept or decline their awards, and right now, this shows how they have an arrow pointing to the academic year or term, which is the same thing we did for the CSU. So after you click the right year or term, you're going to actually go in once again, view the types of aid that were offered. And here you can see the amounts, just like the CSU one. And then you have the parts where or like the little bubbles that you can check. And that's going to give you the selection buttons for you to accept, decline, or leave it undecided. So once again, same concept. If you don't want to take out all that money or you want a different amount than what's offered, you can go back in and change the amount of what you would like. And then just make sure to press those buttons to bubble in the accept or decline. This is the only like difference in a way. It's not really different because you still have to submit it, but here is pretty much like the electronic signature indicating that you read and you agree to all of the terms and conditions listed after you went in and accepted or declined your awards. So pretty much just like read over this, make sure that everything's fine, and then you can finally press submit in the bottom left-hand corner. Right there. And then here is just the confirmation page. So this is actually really important because the confirmation page for UCs, they give you a document that pretty much tells you the next steps that you need to take, especially if you have completed it and you took out loans. So if you were offered a loan and you are accepting that loan, you do have to go into like the FAFSA website and complete loan counseling, and you have to do a few other steps. It's really not that hard. But this kind of gives you like a step-by-step guide of what you have to do afterwards. So I highly recommend that if you want, you can print this out, save it to your computer, but it serves as not only your confirmation page, but that next step process.
Okay, thank you, Sienna, for explaining all kind of the steps of how we go ahead and accept and decline awards, right? So this is a resource that we were kind of talking about that you saw snippets when Jocelyn and Sydney were discussing the different types of aid, right? So the reason that we have this spreadsheet that we use it at ETS is because we want to make a customizable budget and a cost of attendance that is more tailored to your different situation, right? So I'm going to kind of explain a little bit of the numbers that are here in this spreadsheet so that you understand exactly how we use it. So let's say I'm an advisor at a school and I'm meeting with a student and they are going over their Cal State Long Beach Financial Aid Award letter. So you'll see here that I noted it as Cal State Long Beach. And so the numbers that we're getting with tuition and fees, it's going to be from that cost of attendance sheet that Long Beach gave us. So for this year, it's going to be $6,846. Now, you'll notice here that this student didn't put anything for housing and meals, and that's because this student decided to commute. So they're going to drive to campus. Obviously, they're not going to pay as much as a student who is going to do dorming and their meal plan. So this is going to be maybe different than the cost of attendance sheet that Long Beach actually gave them. And that's good for the student to know this because, again, they're making a budget that's customizable to their own needs. And so maybe we discussed for books and supplies, they're not going to really spend that much. Maybe they're a liberal arts major and they know that their books aren't as expensive compared to a student who's in STEM, right? And then transportation, because they're not going to be spending that much money in housing, maybe they are going to spend more money in transportation than say a student who was going to live on campus does. So that's why you see maybe a higher number here. And that's just considering costs like gas, maybe the parking pass, all that kind of stuff, and then other educational expenses. This is just stuff for like a laptop. Maybe the student wants to get a new one and all those other kinds of costs. And we've created their cost of attendance as 10,000. Now on their cost of attendance sheet, it might have been higher, but it's a good thing that a student knows exactly their own circumstances as far as like how they want to attend Cal State Long Beach, because those numbers kind of fluctuate, right? And then here we see in this section, it's the financial aid section. So this is money that is that part of gift aid that Sienna was discussing, right? And so we'll include here the Cal grant that they were offered, the Pell grant, maybe they were offered a grant for EOP, so we added this in there. So this is gonna be all the free money that they are gonna get, which all of these numbers again is gonna be from their financial aid award letter. So then here we see the cost after the free money is about $10,006, which is again, this number from here of their estimated cost. So after, we kind of review a little bit about the financial aid, maybe I'll talk with the student and say, look, you might have to consider loans because again, maybe there's some out-of-pocket costs that they want to consider taking those loans out for. And then we talk a little bit about subsidized loans. Maybe that's what they're being offered for subsidized loans. And then they end up taking this amount for unsubsidized loans. So this is, again, the money that they have to pay back after they graduate. And so once we separate these two different categories, you see here that the student wasn't offered work study. So we left that at blank here. And so here is going to be the net cost that Sydney talked about, which is again, that out-of-pocket cost. So this is money that they're probably going to get from either a part-time job, maybe a scholarship, or maybe their parents are going to help with their education. But nonetheless, this worksheet really helps break down those individual costs, right? So a lot of times when I was doing these sheets with students, it helped them see, okay, at this school, am I going to have to pay money to go there, or am I actually going to get money back? So when you're doing this sheet with your ETS advisor, we already have formulas and everything ready, so that really we're using the numbers from your cost of attendance sheet and even budgeting to our own specific needs, so that we see, okay, these are your different options and this is how much you're going to be able to either get at the school or have to pay at the school. And it's really helpful because again, we have different options here for like option B could be another school that you were accepted to and you want to put it in the sheet as well, and maybe, even more. And so I've definitely seen the benefit of using this sheet with students, because one time I remember I had a student who was between, Cal State Northridge and UC Merced. And so by doing this sheet, he realized that, what, I'm actually getting money back to go to UC Merced than having to pay all this extra money for housing at Northridge. So again, really helpful resource that we want to make sure you guys have access to. And again, this is through your ETS advisors. So please make sure that you reach out to them, have your financial aid award letter ready, and any of these costs, we can talk about whether, they're accurate, or we can either increase or decrease depending on your separate or your different circumstances. And so again, we know that this was a lot of information, right? A lot of different costs, a lot of different terms. So some of the frequently asked questions and students ask about their financial aid award letters are, what if I haven't gotten one yet? I've been accepted to school, but I've been checking my portal and I don't really see anything. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that the information on your FAFSA is correct. And what we mean by this is, is your full name on your FAFSA? Did you put the right social security number? Did you file FAFSA for the correct year, making sure that it's for 2021 and 2022, right? If you had to submit signatures, have you already done that? Did you also make sure to add the school code? I remember one time we were helping a student for San Francisco. She applied, but then she realized, wait, I never added that school in FAFSA when you had to add all those different schools, right? So you want to make sure you're going ahead and checking all these things, because of course, if you never added those or if you never fixed those, the school isn't going to get that information from FAFSA. And you also want to make sure that you contact the financial aid office for that particular campus to verify that there are no verifications or no holds on your account. And Sienna kind of discussed how you can kind of check that on your portal. You'll want to make sure that you check the to-do list section. And also another question that we often get is, can I request that a school update my financial aid award letter? So if you or your family's financial situation has significantly changed from the tax year used on your 2021-2022 application, which for that was 2019, you may request a reevaluation of your aid eligibility using more current information. So let's say your family's financial situation in 2019 is much different than it was in 2020 because of COVID and everything going on. You are able to submit an income appeal to a school, but you have to make sure that you follow the documentation because every school has a different process. It is possible to get your financial aid letter reviewed after that if you submit an income appeal, but you have to make sure that you're submitting the documents in a form, like in a good matter of time, because these things do take a while to process. And I'm sure many students are in that same situation. So just make sure that you're following up and making sure you're submitting the right documentation. And another question that we have is, what if I'm waitlisted for one school? Will I receive a financial aid award letter? So you will only receive a financial aid award letter to a school that you have been accepted off the wait list. So let's say it's already after May 1st, after SIR, and it's June or July, and you get off the wait list for, I don't know, CSELB. They will then send you all the information of like, okay, this is how much you're going to be offered for financial aid, for housing, for orientation. But usually we do want to let students know that this is going to be after everybody else registers for orientation, right? And by that time, a lot of students will already be registered for housing and everything else. And it's not a way to kind of discourage you, but more so you want to make sure that you're weighing out your different options to see when you can get this stuff in and in a timely manner. So if you do get off, you are going to need to SIR for one school, even if you are on the wait list for another school. So you cannot SIR at 2 different schools. If you do get off the wait list at one and accept their offer, you're going to have to let the first school that you SIR'd for know. You might lose your deposit and all that other kind of stuff. So again, you want to make sure that you're weighing your different options. But yes, once you get off a wait list, that's usually when a school will let you know. But just keep in mind, it'll probably be later in the academic year. Okay, so again, a lot of information, right? But we want to make sure that you guys are well informed because this is a really big, important decision. I know that financial aid is the #1 factor that students consider when choosing a different school. So you want to make sure that you review your financial aid award letters from the colleges that you were accepted to, and make your decision regarding which college you will attend. You have to do this by May 1st, which is, again, SIR. By this point, you should probably be hearing that date so many times, right? As of now, that's what SIR is, May 1st. We, again, because there's so many things changing, we don't know if that's going to change, but you still do have some time to kind of look over your options, but we're probably 2 weeks away from that, and you want to make sure that you're weighing your different options. So financial aid awards must be accepted and declined after submitting SIR, which is what Sienna went over with you guys on how to do that. Cal Grants must be confirmed through the Web Grants portal, and again, we'll give you guys more instructions on how to do that through our Google folder so that you know exactly how to do that. But when we say that you need to confirm your Cal Grant, these are usually the things that you have to do, which is verify your GPA on your Web Grants account, change your school of attendance. So if you guys log into your Web Grants and you see that right now there's a different school, that's totally fine. Once you've submitted your intent to register, you need to go back and make sure that you do that. Also, make sure that your graduation date is on there as well. Sometimes the schools will do this, but again, this is your responsibility to make sure that everything is updated, because if you forget any of these things or it's not done, then you're not going to be able to access that money in the fall. And then you want to start thinking ahead and opening that bank account like Sienna was talking about for the e-refund, right? Later on in our workshops, we are going to have a first year in college. So we're going to maybe talk a little bit more on how to do this. But again, if you need assistance with any of this stuff, please let your ETS advisor know, and we can kind of help you explain a little bit on how to do that. And then again, a lot of information, right? A lot of good information, but you already want to think about all these different options, but don't feel rushed to make a decision about which school you want to attend right away. You do have some time to think this over and discuss your financial aid options. So a lot of times when I did that sheet with students, I really wanted to make sure, okay, we've talked about it today, maybe give it a day or two to really think it over, look it over with your parents if that helps. So that way you are accepting a school and knowing exactly what you signed up for, right? Because again, the last thing that we want for you guys to do is accept to go to a school and then not realize how much you have to pay, right? A lot of times, like that happened to me. I wouldn't want that to happen to students. So that's why we're really taking the time to discuss it today and with your ETS advisors and make sure that you guys know exactly how much financial aid you're going to get. But if something doesn't make sense, even after this presentation, you're still not sure about your own cost of attendance, you're not sure about housing or anything like that, make sure you ask us, ask the financial aid advisors at your school, ask admissions, because at the end of the day, this is a school that you're going to be at for a very long time. So we want to make sure that you guys know how to kind of advocate for yourselves. And then, so here we have the Google folder, which has all the great resources for you all. I'm actually gonna drop this in the chat so that you guys have that link. So if you click on it, you'll have access to it. And these are the different kind of worksheets that we have on there. So the first one is the Financial Aid 101 term sheet. So again, if you're kind of forgetting what type of different financial aid there is, we have here the scholarship, grants, work study, and loans, and a little bit of what they are, right? And then we have here the budget sheet. So this is kind of a more customizable budget sheet for you guys than the spreadsheet that we have with ETS, so that you can write here, okay, this is how much my tuition is, this is how much my dorming or housing cost is, and you can add that all together. And then include your gift aid and even loan amounts, so that you're able to see, okay, this is how much it's going to cost for me to do, or for me to go to this particular school. And then here we have the Cal Grant, so how exactly to claim your award. We did go over it, but again, if you forget any steps, it's also there for you too. Okay, so, access that whenever possible. But just so again, a quick reminder, if you are an ETS, you have all this information, you have all these services, and you're able to do that with your ETS advisor. So make sure you reach out to them if you do have any questions. But now this kind of wraps up everything about our presentation, but we do want to open the space for any questions that you guys might have. So if any of the ETS staff could let us know if we did have any questions.
Yes, Diana, we have so many questions actually. So hopefully you're able to answer some of these, but I'll get started right away just because we're limited on time. So the first question we do have is, does having items on the to-do list affect my aid reward?
I can go ahead and take that question. Yes, so that's why we did emphasize the importance of checking your to-do list, because sometimes schools will require, for say, dependency form or any income eligibility form. So all of these forms, they just don't ask them for any reason. They usually ask them because they need them in order to determine your official financial aid award. So it's very important that you address those. Half the time they will have a deadline on there, and they'll tell you you have until this day to submit it, and if you don't submit it, you might not get a finalized financial aid award. So it will affect you if you do have things on your to-do list that are being requested to be sent right now. I know for a lot of you, you might see your final high school transcript on there. That's something that you don't have to worry about just yet, because your final high school transcript won't be finalized until you actually graduate high school. So that's something that you can possibly turn in later on.
Thank you. What kind of work study jobs are there? Can you give me some examples of what I can look for when I attend a university?
I didn't have work study. Sydney, did you have work study? Is she still there?
I think she stepped off already.
Okay.
She
Well, I
logged
know
out,
some of like my friends, they worked in like the library, or they worked in like the bookstore or at a restaurant on campus. So really there's a lot of different options. And I know people do prefer that because they're more likely to work with like your schedule, because they know you're a student, they know you're working via work study. So there are like a lot of different options. It just takes like some time to go find them for yourself. And we highly recommend that if you are interested in it, start like looking as soon as you get to the school, or if possible earlier, because they might fill up. So yeah, you have a lot of options.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, are loans required? What if I get a full ride, or it looks like I have enough aid on my award sheet? Do I have to accept loans? How does this work?
So I can, oh,
Okay, go ahead.
okay, so I'll just answer really quickly. So if you've already kind of broken down the cost and it doesn't look like you're going to need loans, then that's totally fine to not accept them. Again, loans are kind of in any financial aid award sheet, they're already kind of put on there. And this is again for students to use at their discretion to see if they want to take out those loans or not. If you decide to maybe not take them out while you're accepting and declining those loans, you can always go back within the academic year to the financial aid office and request loans. Now, again, we usually recommend for students to take out subsidized loans before unsubsidized loans because of that interest rate and that 6 months after you graduate you're able to pay. But you can request to take out a loan through the financial aid office, and exactly for how much amount. I did that during my undergraduate year, and it was very helpful because they kind of explained a little bit on how to do that.
Next question. My Cal Grant says I'm attending CSUN, but I'm actually deciding on going to Cal State Dominguez Hills. I know you mentioned this, but how do I update that again?
Yeah, so that's very important. We did go over the fact that sometimes you will see a different school on your web grants. If you go under where it says the school that you're not going to, you should be able to click on update or change school. There should be a link on your WebGrants account, and you can change the school, and then you'll get a list of other schools. You just type in the one that you're actually going to commit to and update it already on there. This is very important for you to do in order for your Cal Grant awards to be dispersed to the correct school that you will be attending.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Is there a way to rent school computers? I don't have a personal laptop. Right now I'm using a high school laptop. Do colleges let you rent computers?
So I think I answered this question because it was sent personally to me, but I did say that EOP and sometimes other support programs do offer laptop loan programs, which, you know, they let you borrow for maybe like 2 or 3 days and then you can kind of go back, but they always have either computer labs at the library or the student center. Obviously, you know, you're going to have to use that during the hours that they have open, but nonetheless, I'm sure they do have support programs where, you know, if you do sign up for those, that you have access to, even if you're not a part of EOP that you had to apply when you first applied to the university. There's other programs like TRIO, Student Support Services, that do offer services like this. So make sure if you're not signed up for a support program that you do that, because they do offer services like this.
And I think especially right now with COVID still around, a lot of the campuses were doing laptop loans as well, just like the high schools. So if there is virtual instruction that's going on in the fall, that might be an option as well.
Yeah, thank you, Andres.
Thank you. Okay, next question. What is the U-Ship grant? And if I already have health insurance, do I still have to get health insurance through the UC system?
I can go ahead and answer that. The U-Ship grant usually covers the cost for health insurance, as you mentioned. If you already have your own health insurance because your parent has health insurance, you just need to submit, I'm pretty sure on your portal, there should be like an option to basically waive that, and you just have to provide evidence that you do have your own personal health insurance, and that way you don't have to get the UC health insurance. If you don't get the UC health insurance, you would not get granted the U-Ship grant. So if you already got the U-Ship grant, usually they give you that to cover the cost of health insurance. Again, if you don't end up getting the UC health plan, then you don't get the U-Ship grant. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Next question. My award letter says it is estimated. Does that mean I will get the money or not?
You'll still get the money, but basically that's like a general amount of what you'll get. Sorry, my dog is in the back. But you'll get like a general amount, or like this one amount that they're saying this is most likely what you're gonna get. So does that answer the student's question? Like it might not be exactly those numbers, but it might be like close to it, around it.
Thank you. What happens when I have extra financial aid money? Do my parents get that money back?
So like I was talking about earlier, if you do have extra money and you did set up that e-refund or like the direct deposit, then you'll actually have that money sent over to your bank account. So I know once my sister, she goes to San Diego State right now, she did get some extra money because she took out, I think she took out like loans and she had some grants. So that extra money went to her account, and then my parents, they took it out and they like saved it. So maybe if like next year she needs some money for whatever reason, they can just go back and get the money and give it to her. So she'll have it later. So you will receive that.
Okay, thank you. Why did I get Cal Grant B if I qualified for Cal Grant A?
So usually this happens again, like I mentioned earlier, the school will provide you the highest amount of the Cal Grant. So whichever Cal Grant is offering you the most money, that's usually what you're gonna get. If you already have like a 3.0, you're most likely gonna get the Cal Grant A versus a Cal Grant B. Again, it varies. It might be different for even another school. So maybe the school that you're referring to is like that, but maybe for another school is gonna be totally different or the opposite. Just keep in mind that they're always going to give you whichever grant is offering you the most amount of money for that particular school.
Thank you. What happens if I don't either accept or decline an award and instead just leave it there? Can I decide later on?
I can go ahead and take that. So if you leave it there, remember you will need the funds to pay for your tuition. So if you've already went to orientation, you signed up for classes, eventually on your portal it's going to say you owe 3,600, for example. So if you haven't accepted your grants or your free money, they're going to assume that that's going to come out of your own pocket. And if you don't pay it on time, then they're going to drop you from the classes and you're not going to be able to enroll. That's why it's very important that you accept your grants, your free money. And then so that way the school knows that you're expecting money and they can use that money to cover your tuition. Another thing to keep in mind, you can leave loans without doing accept or decline. I know Diana mentioned earlier, if you don't accept it right now, you can possibly, but if you need the loan later on, you can possibly go back to your portal and click accept on that loan. If it is that something comes up, you need a new laptop, and now you need $1,500, you can go back to your portal, accept that loan with whatever amount that you need, and then they'll be able to give you that money. But when it comes to the free money, to the grants, to the scholarships, you have to make sure you accept those and not just leave it blank.
Okay, thank you. Next question, will FAFSA see what I spend my refund check on?
No. No. So, I mean, if you take out that money, so say you accept your awards and that money goes to your bank account, they will not see technically what you use it for. But once again, this is for your education. So we highly encourage you to use it for like what you're gonna need. So like books, laptop, I don't know, anything that you're going to need that has to do with like your education or even like your dorm, things like that, then we highly encourage you to spend it on those things. So not like shoes, not a trip, not those things.
Okay, thank you. Next question, I haven't received any financial aid award letters. What should I do?
Okay, so I think I kind of went over that. If you haven't received your financial aid award letter, one, make sure that your financial aid application is correct, your FAFSA. So did you put the right name? Did you put your social? Did you put the school code for the school that you're waiting on? Have you submitted your signatures? You know, make sure that all your FAFSA is correct. But if you still haven't, it's still been some time, you don't have any holds on your account, you're not being verified for FAFSA, then you need to go ahead and contact the financial aid office at that school immediately. Make sure you have your student ID ready and handy because they will ask you for this information. It might take some time for them to get it to you, but you want to make sure that you're going ahead and asking because, again, SIR is coming soon and we want to make sure you have access to that.
Okay, and then a bit of a follow-up, someone did ask, how long does it usually take for FAFSA to update the colleges?
I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly. Like, how long does it take for, like, if
Like,
they add a school to FAFSA?
yeah. Or if
I'm
they
not sure
change.
if, Melissa, can you unmute yourself if you want to ask that question?
Because if you're referring to how long does it take to update a school on FAFSA, meaning that you probably didn't add it before and now you went back to your FAFSA and added a new school. Usually if you use an FSA ID to submit your signatures for your parent, you can go ahead. It would take like just a couple of days for it to be.
Okay, Melissa, you should be able to unmute yourself now if you would like.
Okay, I think we can move on to the next question then. Let's see. Okay. What is included in the fees for tuition and fees?
Well, that can depend on the school, but I know there are, like, for example, some schools, they offer free resources to you, like while you're on campus, and a lot of times those fees really covers it. So it's like it's free while you're there, but those fees kind of cover those expenses. So honestly, it depends on the school. I don't know if anybody wants to add to that, if they know like what else.
Yeah, I think a lot of the schools are including, campus-wide fees. So access to like a student center, a gym, things like that, that may or may not be open when we start in the fall. A lot of them also include like loan processing fees, health fees if you don't have your health insurance. So just different costs like that. If you are interested in looking at like a full breakdown of the fees that are included, you can always go to your ETS advisor and they'll help you look on the school's website, and most of them will have a complete breakdown of what they're charging you.
I was gonna add to that. It could also be like the career center resources where you can have like one-on-one assistance. It could be food pantry assistance. Any student events that they have, they would be for free for students because that is a part of the student fees.
Thank you. Okay, next question. I just created my CSAC web grant account. I'm not really sure what to do now so that I can update my schools. I didn't really know about this website. You guys mentioned it, but can you explain or show the website?
I don't know if we have time to show the website, but if you already created your web grants account and you already decided on what school you're going to commit to, your next step is to go on there and update your school of attendance. So we did talk about this earlier. You want to make sure that whatever school you're going to, that's what is reflected on your web grants, just to ensure that your Cal Grant awards will be dispersed to the correct school. Later on, once you graduate, you also want to make sure you update your graduation date. Again, that's something I did mention earlier. But for now, first things first, just update that school of attendance, and then you can move on to graduation date later on when you actually graduate.
And remember, we have that worksheet in the files so that you know exactly what are the different steps to claiming that Cal Grant Award.
And then if you're still having trouble, definitely reach out to your ETS advisor. They'll be more than happy to hop on Zoom with you and do a step-by-step of how to do that. Okay, going on to the next question. Let's see. I'd like to know if you personally picked the college that gave you the most money or your dream school.
Go ahead, Tina, you can go.
So San Diego State was my dream school, and I did receive a lot of scholarships my first year. So pretty much my first year was paid off. But I'm not gonna lie, the years after that, it became expensive and we had to take out loans. But like my parents understood that that was like where I wanted to go because I just felt like they had everything that I wanted. And like I do have, I have to pay back the loans now, but I'm not really worried about it because I just feel like, I got the experience that I wanted. I had a great time there. Now my sister goes there. And I'm just like, when I can pay it, like I'm gonna pay it. Like the payments to me, since they're small payments or like I can do it over time, I feel like my experience was worth it. So for me, it was my dream school.
I'll just quickly say my experience. I didn't do that. I didn't look at my financial aid options. I literally was like, okay, you guys are responding to me quickly, so I'm just gonna do it. Now, should you do that? No. But we learn a lot from our mistakes, and I didn't even know that you could take out a loan and only request a certain amount. I ended up taking out more than I needed to. My second year, I had a lot of issues with that. But do I regret taking out loans? No, because they did help me personally. My family was just kind of like, your college expense is your own. So again, I had to just kind of learn from my mistakes and learn to see like what is the best investment for my education.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to add to that really quickly. If you're considering going to grad school, consider that cost as well, because the loans can pile up. So if you want to go to grad school or doctorate school, already keep that in mind so that you can kind of understand what you're going to get yourself into and what you will have to pay back when you finish your master's or your doctorate program.
Yeah, and I feel like the name of the game is managing your student loans, right? Not avoiding them at all costs, which I think sometimes the message gets a little bit lost. Because no, we don't want you to take out, $10,000 in loans every year to attend school. But if you have to take out $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 to make your dream school affordable, or to make your plan after high school reality, then that's something that you can manage and pay back even while you're in college. You don't have to wait until after.
Thank you. Next question. How did you decide or how should I decide what housing option I should pick? I'm planning to dorm.
I dormed for all 4 years. I did that because like the first 2 years was an actual dorm, and then the last 2 years was an apartment. And the first year I was able to dorm with like one of my friends in second grade. So that way I was like, okay, it's okay for me to do a triple room. I can have somebody I'm comfortable with and somebody I don't know at all. And that kind of helped me create friends because it was like we lived on a floor where everybody was like cool with each other. We had a community bathroom. So that was great for freshman year because I didn't know anybody going in. But as I got like older and was going through the process, I was like, okay, I need to focus like on my grades. I need to focus on all of my obligations, my responsibilities. So I was like, it might be better for me to have a single room. So that's kind of why I switched because it was like, I know people at this point, but now I kind of have to get down to business. So I kind of, wanted or had a preference for a room by myself. So really, I feel like it depends on what you want. And usually the schools, they have like a questionnaire when you're filling out like your roommate. They have like a roommate portal or like a dorm portal. You can figure out like, oh, I want to be with somebody who's like morning person or like a night owl. So things like that. Just figure out what you want from your living experience and like what kind of roommate, if you're gonna have one, like what you want them to kind of be like.
Thank you. Okay, and then did you have a budget when you were in college, and do you recommend working the first year? I'm a first generation student and want to make sure that I adjust well to my first semester.
I'll go ahead and take that. That's a really good question. So I'll share my personal experience. I feel like I did budget. I did get money back my first year. I went to Cal State Long Beach, so I got money back since I did not dorm. But with that, like a lot of the advisors said, like you have to know to not feel overwhelmed, but like, wow, I'm getting $3,000 in my bank account. I'm gonna go buy a bunch of stuff. Like, you have to be more wise about how you're gonna go about spending your money. I did a lot of savings, so whatever I did not use for school. So if I already bought my laptop and I still had money left over, I saved that money. And eventually, it accumulated and I was able to buy myself something that I actually wanted, or it's just still saved. In terms of working, I did not work my first semester. As similar to you, I kind of wanted to get adjusted to the realm of like what school was going to be like, how my classes are going to go, what's the workload. So I really wanted to get accustomed to that. But I did start working my second semester of freshman year. So again, if you find a job, I always recommend students to find a job that are going to be flexible with your school schedule. That they understand that you're a student first before an employee. So if they understand that, then they're going to be very flexible with providing you not like so many hours, and they're going to be able to give you like days off for finals or for maybe an assignment. So usually like jobs on campus, they're really good at doing that because they know you're a student. Personally, I did not work on campus. I actually worked retail. I worked at Home Depot, and they were really good at just like giving me my days that I have for school. And I would just send my schedule requests beforehand, and I knew what days I was going to work like a month in advance. I also made sure that my hours were just like around 20 hours a week because I was taking 5 classes. So I was a full-time student and I didn't want to get overwhelmed because at the same time, you don't want to invest so much time in work that you forget about your schoolwork. Because that will affect you in the long run when it comes to like doing finals and maybe not learning a certain content because you were too busy working. So that's something to keep in mind, but it's definitely doable. So don't think you cannot do it. You can absolutely do it.
Okay, and then someone asked, are textbooks really that expensive in college?
So I can answer this. It really just depends on the classes that you had. I had a chemistry class and a math class where my book was like maybe 300, almost 400, but I've had classes where it was literally just reading books, and I was able to get those like for $8, right? Just super good at looking at like thrift books or even just rentals. So it really just depends on the material that you're going to be covering. Sometimes professors do a great job of telling you, you can either look this up on a PDF, or maybe, they give you resources to find it cheaper than at the bookstore on campus. So it's really, once you have your class schedule and they give out the syllabus and it tells you like what books you should get. Do your research. It really pays off to either, if you can find them online, we are going to have the first year experience presentation, and we'll actually give you those resources of where to find those books for cheaper and just like general what you could do to save in college.
Thank you. Let's see. Sorry, I have all of these questions written down that are sent to me privately. Someone did ask about the middle class scholarship. If you can talk a little bit about that.
I can go ahead and take this one. So the middle class scholarship, there's no particular application that you need to fill out. Basically, once you fill out your FAFSA and your income, I believe at this, I was trying to look it up. I was trying to look for it earlier. If you're like in that middle class range, you can be eligible for the middle class scholarship. However, it is not something that you're for sure going to get, even if you meet the eligibility requirements. Everything is contingent on how much funds CSAC has to actually give these scholarships. So it's not something that you should depend on. You may or may not get it. I know sometimes students don't get informed if they get it until like maybe July, some even August, and it takes a long time for them to actually be processed and for you to actually get the money. I don't know if the PCs want to add to that because I'm not too sure how much money students usually receive if they do get the middle class scholarship.
I think I've only ever had one student receive or be eligible for the middle class scholarship, and it was for Berkeley. And I think it was kind of the same thing where they just covered the tuition and fees, and housing was kind of separate from that.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say also. It's not very common that students get awarded the middle class scholarship because the Cal Grant or the Pell Grant might already cover your tuition and fees, and that's what this middle class scholarship will do. But if you do get it, then you're one of the lucky ones and it will cover your tuition and fees.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions that we have. If you do have any final questions, you can add them to the chat, but that's all that I have.
Yeah, so I mean, great job everyone for asking such good questions. We want to make sure that these sessions are very informational for you all, because again, this is a very big important decision, right? But if there's anything that we didn't talk about, or maybe you're a little bit more curious about, whether it be Cal Grant, your own specific situation and how you're going to need to budget that, please make sure that you reach out to your ETS advisors. That is what they're there for. If you do have any questions, you can also reach out to us. But once again, thank you all for your time. We did go a little bit over, but great questions. And if you guys have anything else, just let us know. But have a good one. And again, thank you so much for joining us here today.